There's a level of consistency that makes laziness biologically impossible. And today, you'll discover a 1,000-year-old system used by Buddhist monks that completely removes the neural pathways of procrastination from your brain. Have you ever met someone who just doesn't procrastinate, who never says, "I'll do it later," who starts tasks immediately without overthinking or hesitation? While you're sitting there scrolling your phone, putting off important work, making excuses about not being in the right mood, they're already 3 hours deep into focused action. And you know what people say about them. They're just naturally motivated. They don't struggle like normal people. They must have some genetic advantage. But what if I told you that in ancient monasteries across Tibet and Japan, monks developed a daily routine so precise that it literally rewired their brains to eliminate laziness at the neurological level? They called it samu, the practice of sacred work, and it wasn't about motivation or inspiration. It was about creating a brain state where delaying action becomes more uncomfortable than taking action. Once you understand how it works, procrastination will feel foreign to you, like a language you used to speak but forgot. But there's a catch. This system requires you to follow an exact sequence for 40 days without missing once, not 39 days. 40. Miss one day and you start over. It's non-negotiable. Before I show you exactly how this works, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment on the one task you've been putting off for weeks or months. This helps me understand what you're struggling with and helps the channel reach people who need this. Thank you so much for your attention. Now, back to the video. The story I'm about to tell you is about a woman named Elena. Elena was 32 years old, worked as a marketing consultant, made decent money, and had a comfortable apartment. But Elena had a problem that was eating her alive. She couldn't start anything. She had a business idea she'd been thinking about for 2 years. She had a novel she wanted to write. She had a certification she needed to complete for a promotion. She had a workout routine. She kept saying she'd start on Monday. But every single day, she'd wake up with good intentions and end the day having done nothing meaningful. She'd spend hours scrolling social media, watching videos, reorganizing her desk, doing busy work that felt productive but accomplished nothing. By evening, she'd feel guilty and disgusted with herself. She'd promised that tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow never was. This pattern had been destroying her for 5 years, 5 years of potential wasted, 5 years of dreams postponed. 5 years of feeling like a failure, despite having all the resources and opportunities she needed. She tried everything: productivity apps, time blocking, the Pomodoro technique, motivational videos, accountability partners, therapy. Nothing worked for more than a few days. Because Elena's problem wasn't time management. It wasn't a lack of knowledge. It was neurological. Her brain had learned that delaying action was safe and comfortable, and taking action was uncertain and uncomfortable. So her brain chose to delay every single time. Everything changed when Elena took a trip to Japan and visited a Zen monastery. She wasn't there for spiritual reasons. She was just a tourist. But she arrived early in the morning and watched the monks go through their daily routine. What struck her wasn't their meditation or their chanting. It was how they moved. Every single action was immediate. When the bell rang, they stood up instantly. When it was time to work, they started instantly. When it was time to eat, they ate. When it was time to clean, they cleaned. There was zero gap between the signal and the action. No hesitation, no negotiation, no "I'll do it in 5 minutes." Just immediate response. She asked one of the English-speaking monks about this. He explained that monks follow a practice called samu, which means sacred work. But it's not about the work itself. It's about eliminating the gap between intention and action. He said, laziness isn't a personality trait. It's a habit loop your brain has learned. The gap between thinking and doing is where laziness lives. We train to delete that gap. The monk explained that samu has 3 elements that must be practiced together every single day. First, ichigo zamai, 1 action focus. You choose one specific task that must be completed before noon. Not multiple tasks, not a to-do list, 1 task. And you declare it out loud the moment you wake up. Second, sokudo kaishi, immediate start. Within 5 minutes of declaring your task, you must take the first physical action toward completing it. Not planning, not preparing, not thinking. Action. Third, kanze made, completion commitment. Once you start, you don't stop until the task is complete or noon arrives, whichever comes first. No checking your phone, no switching tasks, no breaks unless physically necessary. You work until it's done. The monk said, do this for 40 days and your brain will rewire. The neural pathway that makes you delay will weaken. The neural pathway that makes you act immediately will strengthen. On day 41, you won't need to force yourself anymore. Immediate action will be your default. Elena returned home and decided to try it. She thought it sounded too simple to work, but she had nothing to lose. Day 1, Monday morning, she woke up at 6:30. The moment her eyes opened, she said out loud, "Today I will write 2,000 words of my novel." She set a timer for 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes, she got out of bed, made coffee, sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and started typing. No email checking, no social media, no, let me just see the news first. She started writing. The first 10 minutes were torture. Her brain screamed at her to stop, to check her phone, to do something easier, but she kept typing. By minute 20, something shifted. She fell into flow. The words started coming. By minute 40, she'd written 500 words. By hour 2, she'd written 1,500 words. She looked at the clock. It was 9 in the morning. She'd done more creative work in 2 hours than she'd done in the last 2 months. She finished the 2,000 words by 10:45. She sat back in her chair, stunned. She'd actually done it, not because she felt motivated. She hadn't felt motivated at all. She'd done it because she followed the system. Declare, start within 5 minutes, don't stop until complete. Day 2 was slightly easier. Day 3, her brain started expecting it. On day 5, she noticed something strange. She wasn't negotiating with herself anymore. The moment she declared her task, her body just started moving toward it. Day 7, she completed her first full week. She'd written 14,000 words, more than she'd written in the previous year. By week 2, the resistance was almost gone. Starting immediately felt normal. Delaying felt weird. By week 3, Elena realized her entire personality was changing. She wasn't just applying Samu to her morning task, she was applying it to everything. Dishes needed washing, she'd do them immediately instead of leaving them in the sink. Email needed for sending, she'd send it now instead of later. Phone call needed making, she'd make it within 5 minutes of thinking about it. The gap between intention and action was disappearing from her entire life. By week 4, people at work noticed. Her boss said, "You're getting things done faster than anyone on the team. What changed?" Eleanor said, "I just stopped waiting to feel like doing things." By day 30, Elena had completed 30 consecutive mornings of immediate action. She'd written 60,000 words. She'd finished her certification course. She'd cleaned out her entire apartment. She'd handled things she'd been avoiding for years. But the real change was internal. She no longer identified as a lazy person. That identity was gone. She was now someone who acted immediately. By day 40, the transformation was complete. Elena woke up, declared her task, and started without thinking. It was automatic. Her brain had rewired. The neural pathway for procrastination had weakened so much that delay required effort. Immediate action was now the path of least resistance. A neuroscientist at MIT who studies habit formation explains that the brain operates on prediction. When you repeatedly delay action, your brain predicts that delay is what you do, and it prepares for delay. When you repeatedly act immediately, your brain predicts immediate action and prepares for it. After 40 consecutive days, the prediction becomes so strong that your body starts moving before your conscious mind even decides to. Elena wanted to understand the deeper philosophy behind why Samu worked. She found writings from a 13th century Zen master named Dogen, who explained that laziness is a form of self-delusion. He wrote, "When you think I will do it later, you are lying to yourself. Later never comes. There is only one now. The person who says later is the person who says never." Dogen taught that the gap between thinking and doing is where suffering lives. Every moment you delay doing what you know you should do, you create internal conflict. Part of you wants to act, part of you wants to delay, and those two parts fight. That fight is exhausting. It drains your mental energy even when you're doing nothing. But when you eliminate the gap, when you act immediately, the conflict disappears. Your mind becomes unified. You think, you act, you complete. No suffering. Dogen also wrote that laziness isn't about not wanting to work. It's about wanting certainty before you start. You want to know the task will be easy, that you'll do it well, that you'll feel good doing it, but certainty never comes. So you wait, and waiting becomes your pattern. Samu breaks this pattern by forcing action before certainty. You declare the task, you start within 5 minutes, and you discover that action creates clarity. You don't need to feel ready, you just need to start. By month 3, Elena had transformed completely. She'd finished her novel, 90,000 words. She'd launched the business she'd been thinking about for 2 years. She'd gotten promoted at work. She'd lost 15 pounds because she stopped delaying workouts. Her apartment was always clean because she never let things pile up. But more important than any external achievement, she felt different. She felt capable. She felt like someone who could be trusted to do what she said she'd do. She trusted herself. People started asking her for advice. How did you suddenly become so productive? She'd explained the Samu system. Most people would listen and then not do it because it required 40 consecutive days of discipline. But the few who tried it, the ones who actually committed to 40 days, they all reported the same thing. By week 2, resistance decreased. By week 4, immediate action felt natural. By week 6, their entire identity had shifted. They were no longer people who procrastinated. They were people who acted. One of Elena's friends, a guy named Tom, tried the system. Tom was a software developer who'd been trying to build a side project for 3 years. He'd start and stop dozens of times. Elena challenged him to do Samu for 40 days. Tom committed. Every morning he declared one task related to his project. Within 5 minutes he started working on it. He didn't stop until it was done or until noon. By day 40 his project was finished and launched. He made his first sale on day 43. He told Elena, "I've been trying to do this for 3 years. I finished it in 40 days just by starting immediately every morning." That's the power of Samu. It's not about working more hours. It's about eliminating the delay that eats up most people's lives. Elena found research from a psychologist at Oxford who studies procrastination. The researcher explained that procrastination isn't caused by laziness. It's caused by anxiety. When you think about starting a task, your brain assesses it for threat. If the task seems difficult, uncertain, or uncomfortable, your brain labels it as a threat and triggers avoidance. You feel an urge to do something easier and more certain, like checking your phone. This urge is so strong that most people obey it without realizing they're doing it. The Samu system works because it doesn't try to eliminate anxiety, it bypasses it. By committing to start within 5 minutes, you don't give your brain time to build up avoidance. You move before the anxiety has time to stop you. And once you start, the anxiety usually disappears because you realize the task isn't as threatening as your brain predicted. The 5-minute rule is critical. Research shows that if you delay starting a task by more than 5 minutes, your likelihood of not doing it increases by 70%. Your brain interprets the delay as confirmation that the task is avoidable, and it doubles down on avoidance. But if you start within 5 minutes, your brain interprets that as commitment, and it shifts into execution mode. By month 6, Eleanor was teaching Samu to others. She started a small online group where people committed to 40 days together. They'd post their daily task declaration every morning and check in when they completed it. The accountability helped people stick with it. Out of 50 people who started, 32 completed the full 40 days. All 32 reported that their relationship with procrastination had fundamentally changed. They no longer saw themselves as lazy, they saw themselves as people who acted. The 18 who didn't complete it all have the same pattern. They'd miss one day, tell themselves they'd restart, and then never restart. The system only works if you're uncompromising. 40 consecutive days, no exceptions, miss one, start over. Elena found writings from a Tibetan monk named Pema Chodron, who explained why 40 days is the required duration. She wrote, "Habits live in the body, not just the mind. It takes 40 days for the body to fully forget the old pattern and fully learn the new pattern. Less than 40 days and the old pattern will return. 40 days is the minimum for permanent change. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Studies show that it takes approximately 6 weeks for new neural pathways to become dominant and old pathways to atrophy. 40 days is right at that threshold. It's long enough for the brain to rewire, but short enough that people can commit to it. Longer than 40 days and people lose motivation. Shorter than 40 days and the change doesn't stick. 1 year after starting SAMU, Elena was unrecognizable. She'd published her novel. Her side business was generating more income than her day job. She'd been promoted twice. She was in the best shape of her life. But the most dramatic change was internal. She no longer experienced the internal conflict that used to torture her. She'd think of something, and she'd do it. Immediately. No negotiation, no delay, no guilt. She moved through life with a kind of ease that people noticed. Someone asked her, "How are you so calm and productive at the same time?" She said, "I don't fight with myself anymore. I just act." That's the final stage of SAMU, when action becomes so automatic that it requires no mental energy. You free up all the energy you used to waste on internal conflict, and you use it for actual creation. A researcher at Stanford who studies flow states explains that people who act immediately spend more time in flow than people who procrastinate. Because flow requires full engagement, and full engagement requires that all your mental energy is directed toward the task. If half your energy is fighting with yourself about whether to do the task, you can't enter the flow. But if you start immediately, all your energy goes into the task, and flow becomes accessible. This is why monks who practice SAMU often report that their work feels effortless, not because the work is easy, but because they're not fighting themselves while doing it. The question now is, are you ready to try this? Are you ready to commit to 40 consecutive days of declaring one task, starting within 5 minutes, and completing it before noon? Because here's the truth. You already know that procrastination is destroying your potential. You already know that you could accomplish 10 times more if you just started things instead of delaying them. You already know that the guilt and frustration you feel every evening is because you didn't do what you said you'd do. You've known this for years. The only question is whether you're willing to commit to 40 days of discomfort to permanently delete laziness from your brain. The SAMU system doesn't require you to be motivated. It doesn't require you to feel inspired. It just requires you to follow 3 rules. Declare one task out loud when you wake up. Start within 5 minutes. Don't stop until it's complete or noon arrives. Do this for 40 consecutive days and your brain will rewire. Procrastination will become difficult. Immediate action will become automatic. If you're going to do this, I want you to comment below with the task you're going to complete tomorrow morning. Say it publicly. That's your declaration, that's your commitment, and tomorrow morning, within 5 minutes of waking up, start that task, then come back here and tell everyone you did it. Do that for 40 days. Hold yourself accountable publicly. That's how the monks did it, and that's how you'll do it too. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and get ready to delete laziness from your brain permanently. Remember, laziness isn't who you are. It's just a neural pathway you've strengthened through repetition. 40 days of SAMU will weaken that pathway and build a new one. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for your attention. See you in the next video.